Thanks for tuning in to Witch Wednesdays with Steph and Tara, where we share our knowledge as we chat about a new witchcraft topic every Wednesday morning. Welcome back to Witch Wednesdays. This is Steph.
And this is Tara.
And you are listening to episode 55, Moon Water Basics.
Woohoo!
So moon water is very common, very useful, and one of the easiest things to start out with making in witchcraft.
Oh, yeah.
There are a lot of more complicated spells and recipes and things that you can make, but moon water is probably one of the most straightforward. So it's great if you still consider yourself a beginner and are a little nervous about branching into anything more complicated. Moon water is a very easy place to start.
But very powerful.
Yes, but very powerful. So we have talked about moon water in other episodes, just in passing, as it being a tool that you can use around the Sabbaths and things like that, but we haven't gone over the basics of what it is and how to make it. So we thought that would be a good place to start. So then from here on, when we mention moon water, you can refer back to this and know exactly what we are talking about.
And how to make your own.
So the first place to start, of course, is what is moon water? What are we even talking about? So it is simply water that is infused with the energy of the moon, usually from a specific phase or a specific time. Yeah. And we had an episode all about the different phases of the moon and what each phase means in terms of energy and workings and goal setting and things like that. So each specific phase of the moon has its own meaning. So most often people make full moon water.
Yeah, this was like, I would say 90% of the moon water that gets made is probably full moon water.
And that's just because of the powerful associations with a full moon, but you can definitely make waxing, waning, dark moon, etc. water. You can make them, during blue moons or super moons, those specific times like that, during an eclipse or anything like that. So it's just tied to the energy of a specific moon. And we also, in that same episode of moon phases, we talked about the different full moons in each month of the year and what those different full moons mean, that also have completely their own energy. So it all depends on what you want to use the water for, what your end goal is with it. And then you can use that energy in your working even after the phase is gone, because you now have this vessel that contains that energy. So if you have a specific working that you want to do, but you're not going to be able to do it on the full moon for whatever reason, you can't do it on that day or just don't want to, you can make your moon water on the full moon and then use it 2 weeks from then to do whatever sort of ritual.
So handy.
And you can also then use it during the day, because a lot of people don't want to be doing spell work at 2 or 3 in the morning. Not everybody is a night owl, so they don't want to be doing their spell work by the moonlight. So you can still use the power and energy of the moon even during the day.
Which is so handy, guys. Like, cannot understate. Yeah, it's really, really useful to have on hand. But as Steph said, kind of know what you want to do with it before you go to the trouble of making it. It is super easy to make, but you also want to make sure you're using the right type of energy. So
yes, it's good to, full moon is great for a lot of different things, but it's good to look into what the different phases mean if you have a particular use in mind, which we will get to in a minute, all of the different ways that you can use it.
Yeah.
So first, let's start with how you make moon water. Everyone has a different technique, just as everything else in witchcraft. We all have different ways that we do stuff, and you can make it as simple or as complicated as you want. So the main technique, the simplest way that you can do this is to just get some sort of container that you can collect water in. Ideally, it's going to be boiled or distilled water, so there's less of a chance of bacteria or sediment in it. And if you're just using plain tap water and you're only going to be using it to, say, water your magical herbs, then that would be fine. But if you are going to be like drinking it or using it in the kitchen in some way, you definitely don't want all of that gross sediment and stuff, then bacteria that can grow in there, especially if it's sitting out a couple of days. So definitely want to get as clean water as possible. And then you want to add it into your container, which should be glass.
Yes,
We've
guys.
talked about this before, that plastic is not great in witchcraft in general.
Or for the world.
Yeah. So we don't like plastic. And in this case, plastic is an insulator. So it's going to really block a lot of that moon energy that you're trying to get into the water. So it kind of defeats the purpose, whereas glass is just going to let that light come through. If that makes sense. So plastic is not ideal. So glass would be much better. Whatever kind of glass, if you have a glass, I use mason jars because that's, I think, like the staple of witchcraft. There are no rules to witchcraft except buy a lot of mason jars.
I think that's just a rule in life anymore. Just buy a bunch of mason jars.
Rule of life. The mason jars for everything. But if it's just like a glass of water, that's fine too.
Yeah.
And then all you have to do is leave that to sit for 2 to 8 hours in the moonlight. So the main point of this is that you catch it and remove it before the sunrise.
Yeah.
Because if the sun hits it, then it's no longer moon water.
Yeah.
So
kind of defeats the purpose.
Right now in the winter months, it's a little easier to leave it completely overnight because a lot of people wake up before the sun rises in the winter. But in the summer, when it comes up really early, if you're not going to be up at 4:30 in the morning to go collect your water, then it's better to just leave it for a few hours before you go to bed. Just set it out, and then before you go to bed, bring it back in. If 2 to 8 hours is fine if you can't leave it overnight.
And it doesn't have to be outside also, because right now it is freezing cold where I am, and a window seal is what I use.
Yeah. It would freeze.
Yeah, it would outside freeze and break my mason jar, and it would be a whole big hassle. So window seal, again, yes. It's coming in through glass. It's going into glass. It's fine.
And a lot of people don't even want to put it outside for various reasons. The wind can knock it over. Animals, stuff could get into it if you don't have a lid on it, like bugs and dirt and things. And a lot of people live in apartments where they just don't have the opportunity to have some place to even put it outside. So a windowsill is perfectly fine because it doesn't need to be in direct moonlight. So even if you are in the broom closet and the only kind of like space that you have to put it is your bedroom window, and the moon that night doesn't happen to be on the side of the house that your bedroom is on, that's okay. It doesn't have to be in direct moonlight, because if the moon can still control the oceans and the tides, even when there's cloud cover, it can reach your glass. It's okay. Yeah. you don't have to panic. It's all about the energy of like the time and the place where you are, rather than the direct light hitting it. I mean, a lot of witches do prefer the direct light hitting it, but it's not going to change the energy. You're getting the energy of that phase of the moon, which you can feel anywhere.
Yeah, I prefer direct moonlight, but if clouds come out of nowhere, I'm not going to cry and be like, oh, it's ruined. Like, it's completely fine.
And after that, you just remove it and place it in the fridge, label it so you know what it, if you're, using multiple phases of the moon and have lots of jars going, just label it so you know what it is. And just place it in the fridge, because you can use it longer, obviously, if it's in the fridge, if it's chilled.
Yep.
So that is the most basic way. Put the water in the jar, put the jar in the moonlight, you're done. There are a lot of other ways that you can make it more complicated. Of course, you can, if you have like a mason jar and you have a cap on it, you can use candle wax to sort of seal it. You can draw sigils on it or moon glyphs. You can use oils. There's a lot of oils associated with the moon, or the specific, spell work that you're going to be doing. You can use oils like on your vessel. I personally use a candle on top. So I melt the bottom of the candle a little bit so it will stick to the lid of the mason jar. And then I light that. Obviously, I don't do this overnight. I don't leave a candle burning while I'm asleep,
and not in your fridge.
that's not safe. Husband's a firefighter, so never leave a candle burning when you're asleep. but I do put it in the windowsill with a candle on top for a few hours before I go to bed, because I feel like putting it like actively attracts and like draws the moonlight into the candle and down into the container and the water, rather than just passively absorbing the moonlight by just sitting there. I feel like the candle makes it like a little more active. So that's how I like to do it, to just like draw it in. A lot of people also like to put crystals into the water. You just have to be careful that they are water safe. A lot of sodium based crystals are going to dissolve in water, so you don't want your crystals to get damaged. And unfortunately, moonstone and selenite, which are like the two most associated with the moon, are both not water safe. So
don't put them in your moon water.
So don't put them in the moon water. If you are going to be using them, just put them next to the jar or on top of the jar. If you have a lid, like that's fine. But yeah, those two are both damaged by water. So
don't put them in there. Don't
put them in. So there are a lot of different ways. I think at the time when this is going to go up, I'm going to take a picture of, like my candle and how I do it and post that to Instagram. So if you have a different method or want to share, what you do, definitely let us know in the comments on that photo, or tag us in the photo of how you set it up or anything, because a lot of, new witches or witches who are looking to expand their practice like to listen to this podcast, that are always looking for new ideas. So we love when it's like a community of you guys sharing your different ideas.
We are not always experts, and we love learning new things. So
yes, we love learning new things, and you're never going to know what sort of method works for you and what's going to inspire you
until you see it.
Yeah. So how do you use moon water? Like, what is the point of collecting it and charging it, and what do you even do? So we have mentioned it specifically before in terms of cleansing. We talked about cleansing your home and your tools and how you can use smoke for that, but you can definitely also use moon water for cleansing your space, cleansing your altar, cleansing your tools. You can cleanse other water safe crystals in your in your moon water, which is a great way to use it. And you can also use it to cleanse yourself, specifically in ritual baths. You don't need to make an entire bathtub full of moon water.
Don't try and like bathe in this, guys. That would take forever.
You don't need an entire bathtub full of moon water, but just like a regular bath, and then add your jar of moon water to it would be a great way. And you can use it in all kinds of ritual baths. You have ritual baths for, love and self-love and prosperity and balance. That's actually coming up in our next Sabbath box for Ostara. Ostara is all about balance. And we are going to have a ritual bath in that, bath salts. And that's definitely something that you can add moon water to, because a full moon is also about balance. That has balancing energy with a full moon. So that would be a good way to sort of just amplify your ritual bath. It's also used in scrying. There are a lot of different ways to scry. We've talked about scrying as a method of divination, and that's just where you stare at a surface until images come to you, and then you decipher what those images mean. And the crystal ball is the most commonly known way of doing this, but there are a lot of different ways to scry, and you can stare into like a bowl or cup of water. You can use mirrors, you can use black screens, anything like that. And moon water is a very popular one to scry with.
Yes.
And it's just, you can use regular water, but moon water, has a little bit of extra energy. And if you are using it at a specific time because you're looking for some answers about a specific area in your life, then timing that to the phase of the moon can be a good way to get the answers you are looking for.
And a very powerful tool, guys. This is scrying, especially if you're not necessarily using full moon water, but like dark moon or waxing or waning, can really give you insight into specific issues you might be looking for information on.
Another way that you can use your moon water is to water your magical plants. Tara grows tons of herbs.
Yes, I do.
She has a huge thing. But yeah, any sort of magical plants, if you have like a full garden or you just have like a little herb box in your windowsill or anything like that, moon water can be a great extra boost to your plants that will, not only help them grow, but then infuse that magic once you end up harvesting and using said plants.
And it usually works really, really well, better than normal water. But if for whatever reason you can't get moon water, don't freak out that your magical plants aren't getting moon water every day.
Yes, just once in a while is a nice way to use it.
Yes.
Another way that you can use moon water is by drinking it, but only up to 3 days, and only if it's been in the fridge, because we don't want to be drinking stale water that's been sitting around.
You definitely don't want it if it's just been sitting in a container, because it can start growing things in that container, especially if it's outside the fridge. So don't leave it on the windowsill for a week and then be like, I would like some tea out of this. No, you would not. You'd like some bacteria out of that.
But if it is clean and you've kept it in the fridge, then it is perfectly fine to go ahead and drink that. A lot of people drink it in ritual as part of their spell work. A lot of people also use it to make tea.
Yep. Magical teas are really good with a little splash of moon water.
Yes. Tara's the tea queen, but especially if you want to then do any sort of taxiography, which is like reading of tea leaves, tea divination, then moon water just gives it that extra little boost.
Yep.
And likewise, it can also be used in kitchen magic in general. Outside of drinking and tea, it can be used in cooking.
This is where I use it most often, actually, guys.
Yeah, you can use it in all sorts of different recipes. You can definitely make specific magical recipes like we do for the different Sabbats, but you can also just throw a splash into whatever you're cooking, just to give it a little bit of magic, even though it's not part of a spell work or your intention isn't to be making a completely magical meal. You can just use little splashes of it here and there to sort of keep that energy going.
Yes.
You can also use it in painting. A lot of witches paint their books of shadows with watercolors. And I am not in any way, shape, or form talented enough to do that. Like,
ditto.
I paint about as well as a 2-year-old, so I couldn't. But there are a lot of witches who do. We've recommended the Green Witch on YouTube before, Annie, and she actually paints in her Book of Shadows, and she in her grimoire where she's got all of her herbs, and she actually paints like watercolors the herbs into her book. Like, it's beautiful, but outside of my skill level. But if you do like painting, then painting within your Book of Shadows can be a good way to use your moon water and make your book a little more magical.
It's also a really good way to get sigils in there.
Yes.
If you are not big into painting, but you would like some protection sigils in your Book of Shadows, moon water is your friend.
It can also be used in spellwork in general. It can be used to activate sigils, of course, because we've talked about activating sigils by destroying them as a way to get that spell working. And you can definitely destroy sigils with water. And a lot of witches and Wiccans in particular use chalices in their spell work and on their altars to hold water during rituals and spell work.
Altars, guys.
And yes, using moon water in that chalice is a way to boost that working or that ritual.
Yep.
And the last way is during ceremony and other rituals, and specifically thinking like anointing, using a moon water to anoint yourself or a person, or it is often used in hand fasting.
Yeah, because you have to be blessed under the sun and moon, and that's hard to do at one go.
Yes. That would be very difficult. Hand fasting, we mentioned in passing as being very common in a couple of the Sabbats. It's not, one or the other. I think Sabbats in general are a very magical time for hand fasting, but in the Wiccan tradition, you're kind of following along with like the god and goddesses, like their lifetime. Yes, life cycles. That's the word I was looking for. Life cycles.
Yes, their life cycles.
So, we talked about like the history of that through like Beltane and Letha and like how they, get hand fasted and then they grow together. But hand fasting is common at both Beltane, Letha, like all of those times. And yeah, it would be very hard if you have like a daytime ceremony to be blessed in the sun. Like, where's the moon in that? So
moon water is blessed under the sun and moon, and it's just real difficult unless you want to party for 24 hours, which some do. That's all fine. But
Beltane is very popular for that.
Yes. That's why Beltane is so popular.
But that is all of the, not all of the ways. I'm sure there are other ways that those are the most common ways to use moon water in witchcraft. If you have any other ones that you specifically want to let us know about, we would love to hear that. Yes. I personally use it most often in just drinking it and some spell work, and then mostly for watering my plant. The
one plant you have, that's adorable.
I have one right now. That's about my planting skill level. I have a garden outside, but it like tends to itself, and I don't use any of the plants in my spell work. So I specifically picked plants for the outside that will take care of themselves because I do not have a green thumb. So I watered my one plant with moon water, and he is not dead yet. His name is Carlisle. He's fabulous.
He has a place of honor in our home, just so you guys know.
He does. So I'm the one plant I can keep alive with my moon water. So those are the most common ways. And then usually for in the kitchen, I generally don't throw splashes in here and there. I usually intentionally make moon water in anticipation of cooking for Sabbats, because that's mostly. Tara does a lot more kitchen magic than I do, or just like kind of being like aware of it more often than I do with sort of like regular meals. And I don't think about kitchen magic as much outside of the Sabbats. Like it just, I don't know why.
I use it for kitchen magic, but I would say a lot of what I use moon water for is for Sabbath ceremonies. And then magical plants. And then I use the plants in my kitchen magic. I just kind of lump them all in together because I figured the moon water is for my kitchen magic, but it actually goes to my plants. And then I use it during ceremonies. So I don't use it. I've actually never really thought to put it in tea. I know that I've had it in tea before, but now I feel like I should start incorporating it more into my tea that I drink all the time.
You should let us know how it goes.
I will. I'll give everyone an update after 30 days of moon water tea and see how I feel.
That is all we have for you this week on moon water. If you have any questions, definitely let us know. Or if you have any different ways to share about how you use moon water in your witchcraft practice, we would definitely like to know. So let us know on Instagram.
Yes, please.
And we will see you next week for a fun episode all about Mercury retrograde and all of the other planets as well. Because
I was just going to say retrograde.
I know we are only, 2 weeks into January, but at the end of January is 2021's first Mercury retrograde. So we want you to be ready.
Yes, everyone should be ready. Brace yourselves.
So we will see you next week for that.
Goodbye.
Need even more witchcraft? Subscribe to our Patreon account for tons of exclusive bonus content and order supplies from our Etsy store. Reach out on Instagram at Witch Wednesdays Podcast or by email to witchwednesdays@gmail.com if you have any questions or comments. Find all these links and more at witchwednesdays.com.